Hey guys, tonight we descend into something the frost remembers, though the earth would rather forget. Beneath damp stone, below the black moss and lichen-soaked ruins of an abbey long swallowed by flood and time, there's a vault. One you should not open. You probably won't survive this. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and the current time in the comments. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The vault lies beneath what used to be the monastery of Saint Gione, a forgotten order buried near the edge of the Black Forest. You crawl in, not walk, no door remains. Just a hollowed stairwell, slick with limestone sweat, spiraling downward like the gullet of a stone beast. The air changes before the first step. It sharpens, dulls, smells faintly of mint and iron. Even the mold here grows with restraint, as though warned. Your torch dances over collapsed pews and shattered icons, Christ with no face, a Madonna weeping blood that now appears to be salt. You step carefully through the nave, your breath growing louder in your ears. When you find the door, you almost miss it. It doesn't look like a door. It looks like a tombstone, set vertically into a wall of basalt. Smooth, seamless, and cold, enough to numb your knuckles. Only when your fingers brush the stone do you notice the script, etched faintly, in 10 different tongues, none spoken aloud since the 10th century. Greek, Avestan, runic Latin, something Aramaic, something else. Entirely, possibly Linear B, but no scholars entirely sure. They all say the same thing. Still the soul, still the flame. Pass frozen or perish. One of the first to rediscover this place, Dr. Halverson, a Scandinavian theologian and numismatist, published a single paper in 1911 describing it as a convergent vault of linguistic extinction, where tongues once used to summon divinity now serve only to warn away the living. He went missing 3 months later. His last journal entry, "It breathes." The door bears no handle, but warmth itself is the key. You bring your palm close and it resists you. Your body heat seems to repel it. You try cold water, snow in a flask, no response. But when you hold your breath, slow your heartbeat, and let yourself shiver, it softens. A line appears down the middle, releasing a mist that doesn't rise but sinks. Inside, silence. No dust, no echo, as though sound itself is swallowed. The room is circular, no larger than a monk's cell, yet impossibly tall, its ceiling lost to shadow. Along the wall, 12 alcoves. 11 are empty. In the 12th, a book, no shelf. It floats an inch above a plinth of tarnished silver as though reluctant to touch it. You reach out. The book recoils. Yes, actually pulls away. You whisper to it, uncertain why. It returns. Opens. It has no cover. The pages look like skin, but feel like ice. They do not bend, they shiver at your touch. And where ink should be, there is frost. True frost embedded in the vellum-like veins. Each word crystallized. No author's name, no date. Only the title, written in a language that smells faintly of incense and copper when read. Artus Gellidae. Animae, the art of freezing the soul. You see marginalia, scribbled commentary by monks long dead. Some argue against the rite contained within. One notes, "This is not a spell, it is a trap." Another, written in a finer, more trembling hand, simply reads, "I watched him stop breathing. He smiled. The air grows colder the longer you read. Your joints ache. Your breath comes in tiny clouds that vanish too quickly. And somewhere beyond the door you left open behind you, a soft whisper passes. Not from throat, but from stone. The book says the rite must be read aloud, backward. It warns, the breath must not be used but withheld. The silence is the blade. Carve the spirit in stillness. You note a date in the margin, 1147. Next to it, the name of a pope, Lucius II, struck through violently in blue chalk. Scholars never knew why Lucius died so suddenly, or why his body was never shown. His tomb, in fact, is empty. There's a diagram near the final page, A man seated within a salt circle, mouth sewn shut, mirror at his back. His heart is drawn, not in red, but in pale blue. There's also a phrase, scratched, not written. He is still down here, listen. And you do, but you hear nothing, not yet. You stay longer than you should. The cold no longer stings, it settles, becoming part of your breath, your marrow. The book in the alcove does not ask to be touched, but still, you do, and it does not resist. When your skin meets the surface of its opening page, a momentary vision flares, not sight, but temperature, an image composed entirely of sensation, the heat of a fire seen from far off, then replaced instantly by the vacuum cold of a sealed tomb. Not metaphor, not symbol. It remembers flame, and it hated it. The first passage bears no heading, just text that shivers. Even your eyes grow slow, trying to follow the curls of frost script. Latin, perhaps, but bent, like branches in blizzard. Wind. The words fade if read aloud. But one line lingers. To resist heat is to unbind time. You whisper it. The book twitches. A mist escapes its gutter like a breath. In 1532, during the Inquisition's lesser-known northern campaigns, a Dominican friar named Hieronymus Kiel documented the existence of a codex that could not be burned. He described a heretical book that was condemned to flame thrice, in Wittenberg, Krakow, and finally Venice. Yet in each place, only the wood turned to ash. The pages remained, floating above the embers. He called it Liber Gelidus, though this was not its true name. He said, "It makes the torch doubt itself." The current book matches the description precisely. No binding. Parchment as translucent as frozen soap. You hold your torch to its edge, not to harm, but to test. The flame leans away. The parchment glows faintly blue like moonlight in snow. It does not catch. Instead, your torch sputters. Its heat pulled sideways by something that isn't wind. Your fingers begin to numb, not with pain, but with memory. You forget the sensation of warmth. It feels impossible now, as if warmth were a childish belief you abandoned long ago. And the book knows. It knows your body was once warm. It laughs silently in script that winds tighter with each page. You see drawings, anatomical, but wrong. One depicts a rib cage with a lattice of ice descending inward, not around the heart, but through it. Another shows a human silhouette kneeling in front of a brazier, body steaming, not from fire, but from the cold being pushed out. In a half-cracked margin near the lower edge, someone, perhaps a monk, perhaps not, has drawn a frost flower. A white bloom said to grow only on corpses frozen above the cloud line in the Alps. Beside it, a phrase scratched in French archaic enough to shatter. Le feu est un mensonge, seul le gel se souvient. Fire is a lie, only the frost remembers. That same phrase reappears elsewhere. In the next room of the vault, where you now creep with torch lowered to a nub, you find another pedestal. No book rests here, only ashes, gray and unmoving. But when you breathe over them, they shiver, and the torch goes out. The walls here are different, carved not with scripture but with diagrams, a circle of silence, a mouth closed in wax, a soul drawn as a spiral, frozen. Mid-turn, one image shows a monk with no eyes, mouth agape, a serpent coiled in his throat. Below it, the whisper script again. Say nothing. Breathe never. Freeze forever. Scholars have argued for centuries whether such inscriptions are authentic or a monkish hoax. In 1897, a group of 5 antiquarians published a private monograph titled The Book That Burns Without Fire, on the phenomenon of thermic inversion in scriptural artifacts. In it, they describe 4 known texts that exhibit aggressive anti-flame behavior. One, allegedly found beneath a reliquary in Bruges, dissolved a brass lantern within minutes of exposure. All authors died of hypothermia within a month. In July, you feel your thoughts slowing, not dulling, just lengthening. You begin to understand what the book desires. Not your death, not your fear. It wants your temperature, not merely body heat, soul heat, the last whisper of who you are, before judgment. It feeds on the exhale before the scream, the pause between forgiveness and despair. The longer you read, the more you notice something impossible. The pages grow clearer, not frostier, as if your internal warmth were illuminating them from within, as if your life was a candle, and the book the wick, you close it. Try to, but it holds. It does not stick. There is no glue, no resistance. It simply remains open because you are not yet finished. The page reads itself now. Words rise faintly into your thoughts like breath on frozen glass. Those who burn die. Those who freeze remain. The frost along the edge of the pedestal now climbs the floor. You hear it. Tiny cracks in the stone, subtle pops, not of firewood, but of cold conquering dust. You move back. Behind you. The ashes have changed. They're gone. In their place, something glistens. A second book, identical in shape, but sealed in ice. Your reflection trembles on its cover. Not your face, but your exhale. And behind that exhale, something else breathes. The second book, sealed in ice, does not rest. It pulses. You stare, and its shimmer catches the torchlight not as reflection, but as rejection. You see nothing behind the ice, only a shifting darkness that contracts when watched, like a pupil narrowing under judgment. You reach toward it, of course you do, and the frost meets your fingertips not with chill but with hunger. It drinks the heat from your skin, not burns, not bites, just takes. The casing is thick, but not uniform. Its center has a vein, thin, bluish white like the root of a nerve, coiling through the block like a frozen worm. It writhes, but only when unseen. When you glance back quickly, it stills. You press your thumb to the center of the block and feel against all logic something pulse. Not your own blood, something deeper, older, and then without warning a crack. Not loud, not violent, but surgical. The ice splits in a perfect vertical line and steam hisses outward. Not hot, but dry. The ice peels apart like old bark, exposing what lies within. No binding, no parchment, only an unspooled length of flesh-pale vellum, coiled like a sleeping serpent. You lift it, gingerly, and feel it tense. The outer layer is marked only by one symbol, a snowflake with 13 arms, each ending in an open eye. Around it, notes, marginalia, scribbles not by one hand, but by many, and they bleed, not fresh blood. Not warm, but cold. The ink bleeds downward, defying gravity, like frozen oil sliding against the direction of time. It leaves no trail, only dark stains that throb when looked at directly. One marginal note is written in a delicate black letter. Spoken backward in stillness, the right slows the departure. Held long enough, it reverses judgment, but do not wait too long. The return burns. Another, in shaky Provençal, reads, "The soul is not ours. It will scream when you hold it." You read on. The text describes a method not of immortality, but of suspension, a technique perfected by a forgotten sect known only as the Gelidari, the Frozen Ones. They believed in detentionem animae, the stopping of the soul's motion mid-flight. Neither salvation nor damnation, just pause. They viewed judgment as a flawed process, rushed, emotional, unmeasured. To halt the soul was to petition eternity for reconsideration, to remain in the vestibule of the divine indefinitely. No church ever officially acknowledged them. But a letter from Bishop Arnold of Tours, kept secret in Vatican Codex Elsac-Genico, confirms that 3 Gelidari were apprehended attempting to anchor their own spirits using frost-bitten relics and reversed benedictions. 1 died. 2 remained, unrotted. The scroll details the first phase of the ritual, the mirror of breath. It demands the creation of a flat, reflective surface made not of glass, but of frozen ink. Yes, ink, boiled until dry, then cooled for 13 days beneath lunar silence. You must then speak your name into it at midnight while breathing inward, not out. The mirror, if properly formed, does not reflect your face. It reflects your soul's most recent motion. If it shows stillness, you are ready. One marginal note disagrees violently. It is scratched in white chalk along the edge of the scroll, its hand frantic, angular. Lies. The mirror lies. Mine showed stillness, and yet the screaming never ended. Your hands grow colder the longer you hold it, but the scroll does not freeze your flesh. Instead, it slows it. Your veins seem to tighten. Your pulse becomes sluggish, echoing too long in your ears. Your breath mists but does not rise. In one corner of the scroll you see a drawing, crudely etched, childlike, a man with his face pressed to the floor, mouth open in a soundless scream. Beside him, a mirror, cracked. Reflected within it, not the man, but you. You blink. The drawing is unchanged, yet it feels aware. And still the marginalia continues. One note, almost hidden, pressed between folds, is written in glacial runes, a dead writing system used briefly by reclusive monks in Greenland during the 11th century. When translated, if it can be, the phrase is simple. Even the ice forgets you in the end. Scholars have long debated the meaning of these cold glosses, marginalia that appear on no printing press, that resist ink analysis, that chill parchment from a distance. Some claim they are hallucinations, a type of hypothermic glossolalia, experienced during scriptorium isolation. Others believe they are script shadows, the residue of sacred texts that bled their meaning into lesser ones. You unroll more of the scroll. Beneath the rites there is a passage not in Latin but in a strange dialect of Syriac, previously thought lost in the fires of Antioch. Its meaning is unclear, but the phrase, anima frigida, corpus dormit, repeats. Frozen. Soul, the body sleeps. And now, something happens. Your breath no longer fogs. You are not warmer. You are too still. You roll the scroll closed. The marginalia flutters faintly. One drop of frost blood rolls across the surface and stops against your finger. It vanishes into your skin. You feel its whisper. It says, soon. It says, the vault does not breathe. And now, neither do you. Not fully. You feel your breath move in small, reluctant motions like a tide retreating, unsure if it will return. The scroll lies still in your hand, but the marginalia, that ghostwriting, in frost and bleeding ink, feels alive, as if the page carries not commentary but witness. You lower the scroll to the pedestal and the frost embraces it like kin. The cold in your chest lingers and then deepens. There is another chamber, smaller. It smells faintly of copper, as if old coins were ground to dust and fed through ancient cloth. You push the door open. It does not creak. It groans. Not from friction, but fatigue. Inside, a mural carved directly into the stone wall, covered in what at first looks like calcite. But it isn't mineral. It is frozen breath, layered over centuries. You see 12 figures cloaked in shadow surrounding a 13th. All kneel in reverence. The 13th floats, not flying, but suspended mid-rise, as if lifted by hands that aren't there. His arms outspread, eyes closed. A spiral pattern encircles his body, not painted, but scratched in, groove by groove, as though the artist was compelled to inscribe movement into stillness. Below the mural, 3 words, etched in Greek uncial. Stasis est vita. Stillness is life. The doctrine is known only in fragments, bits of sermon buried in the refuse of banned abbeys. A parchment fragment recovered from beneath Mount Athos reads, "Judgment is haste. Fire is rage. God sees clearer when time is stopped." The sect responsible, never officially named, have come to be known as the Calcem Silentium, the silence beneath. Supposedly a splinter order of monastics in the 1100s, they believed life was not the test, but the pause before the test. A waiting room, a hallway, and they wished never to be called in. They taught that the soul's movement attracted the eye of higher beings, be they divine, demonic, or unknowable. That motion, especially emotional or desperate, drew spiritual predators. To remain still, utterly, completely, was to vanish from spiritual notice, to be overlooked by judgment itself. Frozen, their scripture says, is unreadable. Frozen, the soul is not yet written. There's a book, one rarely discussed aloud, titled In frigore Deus non videt, in the cold, God does not see. Only a single known copy exists, deep in the vaults of the Vatican's Index Prohibitorum. Within it, a passage outlines the 3 silences needed to enter soul stasis. Silence of the body, no motion, no pain, no heartbeat above a whisper. Silence of the breath. Inhalation must pause between moments. A breath not held, but suspended. Silence of the name. One must forget one's own name, truly, not mask it, not whisper it backward, but erase it from within. Your heart slows as you read this carved into the mural's frame. You feel it responding. The text is not symbolic. It is instructional. In 1434, a monk named Brother Nereus attempted the rite during Lent. He had written his own commentary on the Artus Gelidii Animae, insisting that he had deciphered the true meaning of stasis, not as a delay of death, but of judgment. He wrote, "If the Lord does not find me, I cannot be weighed. If the devil cannot see me, I cannot be claimed. I will be the unspoken soul." He was discovered years later, not dead, not alive, sitting in his cell, motionless. His candle had burned entirely, but the wax was still warm, his body unrotted, eyes open. One tear, frozen mid-fall. Scholars have argued for centuries. Was it catatonia? A form of advanced spiritual meditation? A hoax? Modern attempts at replication failed catastrophically. A 1978 experiment at the University of Uppsala involved 3 volunteers, mirrors, and a hyper-cooled isolation chamber. 2 suffered extreme neurological damage. 1 simply vanished, his breath remaining in the room like a fog that would not clear. On the wall before you, etched into a corner, a triangle. Inside it, a mirror. Inside the mirror, nothing. No reflection. Only cold. You whisper your name. Nothing responds. You whisper it backward. The stone warms slightly beneath your feet. You close your mouth. The warmth vanishes, and from behind the mural, faint, thin, slow, you hear movement. Not footfalls, not scratching, but grinding like a glacier turning in its sleep. Then silence again. You step back. At the center of the room, you now see what was hidden before. An indentation in the floor, shallow, body-shaped. A circle of white, stones arranged around it. Ice glistens in each crevice. Beside it, a short text incised with trembling hand. He lay here 3 nights. He held no breath. He bore no name. On the 4th, he vanished. Above that, a handprint, still cold, still moist, still human. You kneel by the handprint, not in reverence, but compulsion. The cold it radiates is not temperature, it is absence, as though something has been removed from the world, and this shallow basin is the scar. You place your palm above it, just close enough to feel its breathless chill. A pulse echoes, yours, but off-tempo, syncopated, as though the cold is counting something inside you, not beats, not seconds. Departures. They say his name is lost. Not erased, but frozen out, as if the syllables could not survive in warm throats. The record refers to him simply as Gelidus, or in some notations, Il Freddo, the Cold One. He entered the ritual chamber during the height of the Black Death, according to marginal notes found in the Liber Arcanorum, a catalog of forbidden monastic experiments. He wrote no confessions, no testaments, only a single phrase, on the wall above his bed, If the soul cannot move, death cannot find it. The monks believed he was dead. No pulse, no movement, yet his eyes, open, not dry, not dull, watching. Not you, but something beyond you. They sealed his cell, but he remained for decades. Centuries. In 1742, a stonemason repairing the outer cloisters of the long-abandoned monastery accidentally broke through the chamber wall. He found Gelidus still seated, unmoved, his robes intact, his lips slightly parted as if to whisper, but never quite. The mason fled, tongue frozen. He died hours later. From exhaustion, the records claim, though his body showed no struggle. His final drawing, sketched in dust on the floor of his home, depicted a man with a candle in his chest, the flame frozen, not extinguished. Scholars sent to examine the body of Gelidus found something terrifying. No decay. Even the dust in the folds of his robe had not settled further. He had not been preserved. He had been paused, and worse. His eyes followed movement. One researcher, Dr. Elisa Merrick, claimed she heard the whisper of pages turning inside her skull when she stood too close. Not outside, she wrote, but somewhere between memory and breath. A litany of silence. They left him in place, not from reverence, from fear. In 1801, Napoleon's archivists came to claim the vault's manuscripts. They documented over 200 texts, most theological, a few heretical, all forbidden. But when they came to Gelidus's chamber, they recorded only this. One volume remains unopened. Its name is Man-shaped. You peer closer into the handprint. A frostbite of breath curls at its edges. The wall behind the print, upon closer inspection, has text that was once too faint to see. But now the cold brings it forth, like ink appearing beneath candle flame. He stopped dying. He waited too long. Now he waits still. You step backward, and a flicker catches your eye. To your right in the wall, an alcove. Inside it, a sliver of mirror. Cracked, covered in frost. You reach for it, and instantly, you are elsewhere. Not transported. Reversed. You stand in the same cell but whole. New, before decay. The stones uncracked, the air laced with incense and old ash. And seated before you, Gelidus. He breathes, but not as you do. His lungs move in intervals, once every minute, once every hour. It's impossible to track. His mouth shifts, attempting speech, but the sound is pulled from him before it is born. You see his hand lift, slowly, with unimaginable effort. He points, not at you, but at your breath. It drifts from you like mist, rises, fades. His eyes plead, not for help, for stillness. You blink and return. The cell is as it was, broken, silent, entombed in time. The mirror is now blank. Its surface shows not your reflection, but a swirling white spiral, a symbol you saw once in an old manuscript known only to those who study spiritual permafrost, the sigil of ceased becoming. A mark said to indicate that a soul has elected pause over passage. There is one last thing in the chamber, a bowl, small, simple, carved from ice, yet never melting. Inside it, a drop of something too dark to be water, not blood, not ink. A single black bead that trembles as if alive. Beneath it, carved in microscopic runes around the bowl's inner rim, the phrase, "What he froze, you must unthaw, or join him." You do not touch it, yet your breath has grown slower, your limbs heavier, the warmth inside you, not gone, but fading, like a sun behind glass. You whisper aloud, though no one is there to hear. How long was he there? And from somewhere behind the wall, inside it perhaps, a voice made of winter exhales, still is. You leave the chamber of the nameless monk, though the cold follows, clinging to the inside of your throat like dry ash that never warms. Your steps are slower now, not by fatigue, but by something else. Something pulling downward, like frost, forming not on your skin but beneath it. You pass through another corridor, the stone walls glittering faintly, not from torchlight, but from embedded crystals, tiny, uniform, grown like bone beneath the surface. They pulse faintly when you breathe too loud, and then you find it. A room smaller than the rest, round, clean, or perhaps not clean, but preserved. The air does not move here. Even your presence seems to warp it like breath trapped in a bell jar. At the center, a stone pedestal. On it rests a chalice, not gold, not silver. Ice. Solid, translucent, and rimmed in frost that never melts. Beneath the pedestal, the words, Aqua Mortuorum, for those who no longer rise. You approach slowly. The chalice is not cold to the touch. It is hollow, but not empty. Inside, there is a liquid that looks like water, but when you lean close, you see shapes in it, moving shapes, letters maybe, perhaps even eyes. Every time you blink, they vanish. According to a 1633 codex hidden in the archives of Avignon, this is the chalice of stilled waters, used in the soul-freezing rite. The liquid is drawn not from glaciers or mountains, but from beneath the beds of frozen lakes where bodies rest unclaimed. It is known as water that has forgotten the sky. The ritual demands you sip it but not swallow. You hold it on your tongue and recite the prayer of the stilled breath, not aloud, not even in a whisper. It must be said without breath, not an exhale, not a murmur, only the shape of the words in your mouth. The prayer itself is untranslatable. No scholar agrees on its meaning. Written in 13 glyphs, it appears in no other language. One theory, proposed by the excommunicated historian Bartolomeo Serra, claimed that the glyphs were formed by tracing the paths of dying snowflakes as they melted. A language shaped by vanishing. You try to mouth the first phrase. Instantly, your chest tightens, not from exertion, but refusal. Your lungs resist even the idea of motion. You realize the truth. To pray breathlessly is not symbolic. It is biological defiance. To attempt the chant is to die, or to change what death listens for. On the wall behind the chalice, an inscription coils in a slow spiral. The breath is the tether. Cut it gently. Somewhere in eastern Anatolia, during the late 14th century, a monastery vanished into the snow. Locals claimed no violence, no fire, no plague, just silence. The only clue was a single monk found seated beside a frozen font, his lips parted, his eyes iced over, and in his hand, a cup, the same chalice, still full. Your hands tremble as you lift it. The liquid resists, not sloshing, but leaning. It moves away from your lips. Only when you calm your pulse, clear your thoughts, and exhale completely, does it accept you. The surface draws toward your mouth, not rising but reaching, and then it touches your tongue. Instant silence. The world vanishes. No sound, no thought, only cold. Not pain, not numbness, stillness. You mouth the glyphs, though they make no sense. Shapes in your jaw, imprints in your teeth. The prayer does not echo. It absorbs. The words disappear into your skull like steam into old stone. You say the final shape. Loop spiraling inward, shaped like a snail shell made of frost, and everything stops. No breath. No heartbeat. Only perception. Time holds still like a deer in snow. The chalice glows faintly, then dims. You place it back. Your hands remember heat, but your skin no longer listens. You are not dead. You are not moving. The rite is incomplete. This is only the first stage. On the opposite wall, a mirror, circular, rimmed with wax made from the fat of unbaptized infants, or so the legends claim. The mirror shows no reflection, only fog, until you step close. Then it clears, and you see your last breath. It floats in front of you. Your exhale, your warmth, your final motion before the cold claimed you. It hovers, captured like a butterfly beneath glass. It is still warm, and behind it, your reflection begins to take shape. But it is not your face, it is you, but frozen, unmoving, buried beneath ice. Your mouth open, your name forgotten, your breath a circle of frost upon your chest. You blink, the reflection does not. You step back, and the mirror fogs once more. On the rim, one word appears in dripping frost. Again. It begins not in your fingers, but in your thoughts. The cold is no longer something you feel. It is something you are. You walk, though you do not recall choosing to move. The air no longer resists your lungs, it doesn't enter them either. Breathing has become ornamental, an echo of life, not its engine. The corridor opens into a vault, but unlike the others, this one curves. A spiral, gently descending, walls, slick with what first appears to be condensation. But you soon realize it's memory. Every step downward deepens the cold in your chest. Not temperature, but resonance. You feel yourself slowing, not from exhaustion, but because speed no longer exists for you in the same way. Motion is foreign. The world stretches out like a bell toll in reverse. Time thickens. Along the walls, carvings, faces, scores of them, all open-mouthed, all frozen. Each mouth ringed by what looks like chisel marks, but on closer inspection are prayer glyphs drawn breathlessly with fingertips. Some smile, some scream, all still. At the heart of the spiral stands a simple figure, a statue, human-sized. It is cloaked, faceless, and entirely made of frost. But the frost is from within, emanating outward. It is hollow. A robe frozen around nothing. In its hands, a book, open. But the pages are not inscribed with ink. They are veined, not by writing, but by patterns that look eerily like nervous tissue, as if thought itself had frozen across the parchment. You approach. The air vibrates. Not a sound, not a hum. Just the faintest sense that something nearby is holding its breath, waiting for yours to stop completely. On the statue's pedestal, 3 words: nameless, still, remembered. The book is known in whispered corners of monastic lore as the Codex Respiratus. It is said to record the sensations of those who entered the soul-freezing rite and never returned. Not their thoughts, not their words, but their final, fading perceptions like sensory afterimages. You turn the page and read yourself, not your name, but a feeling, a heat remembered and then lost. The text reads like a mirror, not of face but of temperature, the precise texture of your soul's warmth as it once was, before, and then it records your now, hollow, quiet, becoming. You freeze, not physically, internally. Your thoughts slow further, crystallizing not in content but in form. You understand things differently. Images come sharper but farther apart. Emotions flatten. You remember sorrow but only as a fact. You know fear but cannot touch it. A note in the corner of the book's page, barely legible in frost-etched shorthand, reads, "At this stage, some initiates report the ability to hear the silence of other souls. And you do, a voice like snow collapsing beneath its own weight. A whisper not from behind you but from the walls. You press your hand against the stone. It is warm, not with heat, with someone else's memory. You see flashes. Monks in procession, each with their mouth sewn shut. A nun, fingers black with frost, etching her name into a mirror that erases letters as she writes them. A child, blindfolded, drinking from the chalice and smiling as her last breath curls around her head like a crown. They are not visions. They are remnants. Your presence has disturbed the stillness, and now their stillness leaks into you. At the base of the statue, another text emerges in the frost as you watch. To freeze the soul is not to kill it. It is to anchor it between flame and void, to make of it a stone in the river of judgment. But beware, the river does not stop. This is the central paradox, the spiritual debate that tore ancient orders apart. Does halting the soul's motion prevent divine accounting, or does it merely delay it, stacking centuries of sins into a single eventual reckoning? In 1502, during a secret disputation in Cordoba, scholars from 3 continents met in cloistered defiance to discuss this very question. The session ended with the disappearance of a Syrian theologian, whose final words were allegedly, "The eye freeze is not forgiveness, it is postponement. Interest accrues. You sit before the statue, close your eyes, and inside your ribs you feel it, not ice, but order." The frost that spreads inward is not destruction, it is a kind of alignment, a refusal of chaos, a spiritual geometry that locks emotion into crystalline patterns. You see your memories refract. Childhood laughter reshaped into a snowflake. Your first betrayal mirrored in a sheet of black ice. Nothing is erased. Everything is preserved. You are becoming one of them. Still. Nameless. Remembered. And behind you, the spiral corridor begins to vanish, stone by stone, breath by breath, as if time itself cannot bear to follow you any further. The frost inside you now carries weight. Not just chill, not just silence, gravity. Your thoughts no longer drift like smoke. They settle like silt. Your memories grow heavier, layered one atop the next until the recent disappears beneath the ancient. You no longer remember warmth as sensation, but as debate, as idea, as theory. You stand in a chamber that should not exist, the scriptorium of frozen doctrine. It is not carved, but grown. Walls formed by pressure, shaped not by hands, but by the accumulation of stillness. Dozens of lecterns line the circular space, and upon each lies a single sheet of thick vellum, so pale it seems translucent. The air here is brittle, it does not move. Even your torch flame, low and whispering, seems reluctant to dance. On the walls, records of war, but not of blood or sword. These are wars of thought, clashes between scholars, heretics, visionaries, and monks who questioned not if the soul existed, but what it owed. And at the center of all conflict, suspension. To still the soul, to anchor it in place, frozen on the path to its next destination, was not simply ritual. It was heresy or salvation, depending on who wrote the argument. One scroll, encased in crystal at the room's heart, bears the heading Disputatio inter lumen et galem, the debate between light and ice. It describes a theological council in 1287, held in secrecy beneath the Benedictine Abbey of Rhoda, where 13 minds were summoned to determine whether the suspended soul could be saved. Among them, Father Lucien d'Avranches, author of On the Illusion of Eternal Warmth, and Prior Udo of Mainz, a known practitioner of partial rites of stasis. Their arguments were etched directly into plates of lead, as no scribe dared. Transcribe them aloud. One plate reads, "To delay judgment is to insult grace." Another replies, "Is it grace or haste? Is a soul not permitted pause before the flame?" A third, unsigned, whispers, "If time is God's river, must the soul not be permitted an eddy?" The scholars never reached agreement. 3 went mad. 1 vanished entirely, leaving behind only his gloves folded and rhymed with hoarfrost. The last record states, "He stepped outside the flow. We do not know if he drowned or walked away." The church, fearing dissent, erased mention of the council. The Congregatio Gelidae, those who advocated for soul stillness, were declared anathema. But they were not extinguished, only paused. You approach one of the lecterns. The vellum upon it contains no ink. Instead, its surface is etched by negative heat, glyphs formed by the absence of warmth. They shift as you look at them, like frost fractals growing across a glass pane. You begin to read. The glyphs describe the 4 echoes of the suspended soul, a framework developed by a forgotten mystic named Tiber of Lyons, who claimed he had spoken with souls paused mid-passage. According to his writings, the first echo is sensation, fading warmth, closing light. The second echo is question, have I died, or have I not? The third echo is voice, an internal monologue that fractures and repeats until meaning unspools. The fourth echo is waiting, not for judgment but for a decision that never arrives. You hear them now, faintly, not spoken aloud but resounding inside your marrow. They are not yours. They are others, suspended, frozen, lingering, and within the chamber, a statue stirs. You did not see it before. It is robed, faceless, and seated on a stone chair carved from ice that has not melted in centuries. Its posture is familiar. Still, listening, not dead, not alive, not forgotten. At its feet lies an open book. You kneel. The pages flutter without wind, and there, etched in blue-black ink that seems to retreat when approached, is a singular sentence: to remain unfrozen is to accept the eye of the divine. To freeze is to disappear from its gaze. You understand now why the war was never resolved. Because the conflict was never about truth. It was about visibility. Some souls want to be seen, others do not. The implications shake you. If the soul can delay judgment, can it change? Can it cheat? Can it evolve in the stillness? A second voice answers within the page, scrawled in a different hand, almost pleading. The longer you remain, the less of you returns. Some believe this is the true heresy, not freezing but melting into nothing over unmeasured time. Becoming less than soul, less than self. A spiritual mineral, cold and uncounted. You close the book, and the statue breathes. Not sound, not motion, but presence. It feels you. It knows your breath has slowed and approves. On the far wall, frost etches a doorway. You were not meant to find it, but you are finding things now, as one of them. You pass through the frost-etched doorway. It closes behind you without sound, not with a slam, not even a hush, but a decision. The walls narrow, the floor grows soft, spongy beneath your steps, as though the stone remembers being snow. You no longer trust your sense of movement. Each step feels like a page turning that shouldn't exist. And ahead, a single object, lit not by flame but by an ambient dimness, like moonlight filtered through old breath. It is a box, iron-bound, riveted at its edges with nails that hiss gently in the cold, and it sweats. You shouldn't touch it. You touch it, the surface pulses. Not like a heartbeat, not like machinery, like waiting. A readiness taught with age, like a thought paused halfway through its birth. On the lid, someone etched a warning, not in words, in scratches, like nails on bark. Desperate, repeated. Then, forgotten. You unseal the clasps, 3 of them, each colder than the last. Your fingers feel distant, not numb but uncommitted, as though they're no longer loyal to your body. The box opens. Inside, a tongue, still blue, still moist, resting on silk that is frayed only at its corners. Around it, hands, withered, frostbitten, as if caught mid-blessing and left unfinished. The skin is blistered in places, but there's no rot. Only a silence so total it seems to wrap around each limb like a glove. And something else. Words, not written, but embedded. Burned into the flesh as if with cold fire. Speak no warmth. Write no ending. According to a forbidden compendium found only in footnotes and whispered annotations, Reliquiae Excommunicata, this is the preservation box of Brother Caldus, a heretic executed in 1329 by the Council of Lyon for refusing the release of his soul. They found him mid-right, mouth sealed, body kneeling, a circle of candles, each burning not flame, but ice. He was not dead, and he could not be killed. The executioner reported that his blade dulled on skin, that no wound would stay open, that the heart refused rhythm not out of failure but defiance. They removed his tongue. He continued to speak. They removed his hands. He continued to write, only by sealing the parts separately, tongue in a silver mesh hands in salt glass. Did the ritual pause? Not end, just pause. The box you now touch was meant never to be opened. Its last known location, a chapel in Alsace, buried after a landslide in 1666. No recovery reported. Until now. And now, it's humming. Soft, not cold, a frequency below thought. You lean closer. The tongue quivers. You hear it, not with ears, but with the root of your spine. A language that speaks not to mind, but to stillness. The breath is treason. The word is heat. Silence is the only pact left. You cannot look away. The hands move. One finger twitches, points, to the wall. There, a panel shifts. No mechanism, just agreement. The stone peels back like frost-bitten skin, revealing a hollow alcove. Inside, a slab. On it, the imprint of a body. Empty. Waiting. Above it, a plaque inscribed in liquid mercury. Place what is warm. Leave with what remains. This was Caldus's final attempt. A rite incomplete. A soul suspended. Not trapped, but unconvinced. He believed that full suspension required fragmentation. Each piece of the soul sealed separately, cooled independently, then reunited in silence. His writings suggest a method of soul modularity, heretical beyond even the known rites. He wrote, "Why must the soul be judged whole? Let the breath be judged alone. Let the eyes be weighed apart. Let silence be shared among parts of self." No theologian ever published a response. The implications were too vast, too dangerous. To fracture the soul was to remove its signature, to spread it thin, untraceable. Some claim Caldus succeeded, others say only his silence survived. You turn back, to the box. The hands are now folded neatly. The tongue has curled into the shape of the breathless glyph. Its tip points toward your chest. You understand. It wants warmth. Your warmth. Not to burn, but to freeze. To finish what was begun. You close the lid, not to seal it, but to delay it. Just a little longer. As you do, the air folds around you like ice, closing over a footprint, and from the edges of your vision, your breath forgets itself. You descend again. Not downward, inward. The walls pulse faintly with frost-embedded symbols, half melted into meaninglessness. The further you go, the more time forgets to follow. Your breath no longer escapes your lips, but seems instead to spiral inward deeper into you as if feeding a fire no longer burning. You have passed the rites. You have felt the chalice, touched the tongue. Now you reach the part of the book that no voice speaks of, not because it was hidden, but because it was intentionally forgotten. The chamber you enter is unlike the others. The frost here is quiet still, but not like before. It's not the silence of stone or dead breath. It's the quiet of abandonment, as though even cold itself chose not to go further. And on the far wall, a doorway, sealed. Not with locks. With absence. There is no handle, no seam. Just a void framed in symbols that don't read. They refuse to be read. They retract from your eyes, slip behind your comprehension. Glyphs that bend when looked at. The forgotten chapter lies beyond it. But how do you enter something memory? It self-denies? The answer comes from beneath your skin. Your breath stills. Not because you choose to still it, but because something within you has begun to remember how to remain. The door opens. Not with sound, not with movement. It simply becomes open as if it always was. Inside, a single pedestal. Upon it, a book that should not be. Its cover, frost-bitten leather, writhing with symbols too cold to be seen. The spine cracked, as if it had been shivered instead of broken. And on the title page, scrawled in finger blood turned to ice, Caput de Glacia Astrali, the chapter of astral permafrost. You should not read it. You read it. It begins not with words, but dreams. Transcriptions of visions glimpsed by initiates in the deepest stages of soul stasis. Descriptions not of afterlife, but of before life. Of moments between incarnations, where the soul drifts through landscapes that never thaw. Frozen valleys, made of memory. Ice rivers flowing backward. A sky cracked into prisms, each reflecting a different version of you. Souls you might have been, if time had blinked differently. And then it speaks of the permafrost layer, a barrier between spirit and flesh, formed when the rite is taken too far. It warns, those who linger too long do not return with what they left. A scholar named Damaso Arendt, exiled from the Salzburg Seminary in 1470, claimed to have dreamed the permafrost. In his journals, long suppressed, he wrote, "It is not a place. It is a delay given shape, a dream that freezes itself to avoid ending." He died with pupils pale as snow and skin unmarked by decay. His final word, etched with fingernail into the inside of his desk, drifting. The chapter describes the inverted soul, a state reached only when one's spirit forgets heat entirely, not just physical but moral. Empathy, desire, sorrow, these melt in the permafrost. What remains is form, not evil, not holy, just endurance. You find a diagram etched in the margins, a soul-shaped outline pierced by 3 icicles, each labeled with forbidden virtues. Oblivion of purpose. Stillness of guilt, silencing of name. These are the pillars required to achieve total suspension, the permanent stalling of spiritual decay. The body may rot, the world may turn, but the soul remains where judgment cannot find it, neither condemned nor praised, just postponed. The final paragraph of the chapter is partially erased, burned not by fire, but by heatless light. The text beneath flickers into legibility as your body temperature continues to fall. When the soul is frozen thoroughly enough, it will dream of ice it has never touched. The breath will reverse. The reflection will no longer resemble you, and the voice that once called your name will pass by unable to see. Somewhere in the Vatican archives, deep within a mislabeled folio known only as the Size of Anselm, a single annotation in the margin suggests that astral permafrost is contagious, that to read of it, to believe in it, is to begin sinking into it. You look up from the book. Your breath doesn't return. Your hands no longer tremble. Your name tastes unfamiliar in your mouth. A thin sheet of frost creeps across the stone beneath your feet, growing outward in a perfect circle. And on the inside of your eyelids, when you close them, you see snowfall. But not of this world. Snow that falls upward. Snow that remembers your every step. Snow that knows you are no longer moving. You emerge not into another hallway, but into silence made flesh. A room that does not echo, that does not breathe, that rejects sound the way stone rejects light. It is said that this place was built by a single woman, though no mason ever laid its bricks. The silence room, as it came to be known, appears in one surviving vellum letter from the convent of St. Honoria, dated 1610. The letter is unsigned. The ink has frozen into the parchment. The writer describes a blind sister, a nun who spoke no words her entire life, not from vow, but from discomfort with sound. She was known only as soror glacis. It was said that she sang in her sleep, not lullabies or hymns, but wordless harmonies that made the walls sweat frost. You see her name carved into the wall here, though your fingers can't trace it. They slow near the letters repelled. The room has that effect, slowing all intention. Even your thoughts feel padded, quieter, as if walking barefoot through new snow. This is where she made her experiment. And what an experiment it was. The silence. Room was not always cold. The records, fragments, barely held together in footnotes and oral gossip, claim it was sealed in soundlessness over a span of 13 months. During that time, soror glacis drank only glacial melt. She breathed only once per hour. She wore a pendant made of salt and a shard of mirror. and she prayed to forget her own name. Why? Because she believed the soul could speak to the dead if it ceased being seen by the living. It was not necromancy. It was not seance. It was parallel silence. She wrote nothing down. But on the walls of this room, carved into the frost by her own bone-frozen fingers, are words no one else could have known. You lean forward. The frost lines don't shimmer, they vibrate. And you begin to read what she left behind, not from light but from pressure. The words do not enter your mind, they push into it. The first voice was a child. She called herself nothing. She had no eyes, only teeth. She told me to wait. The second voice had bells for bones. It wept ice. It asked me to forgive its burial. I said I couldn't remember who it was. It thanked me. The third voice said my name. It said it slowly. I do not know what it meant. I do not remember my name. You pause. These were not dreams. These were encounters. The nun, blind, breathless, and nameless, spoke with what dwells in the freeze. Not spirits trapped in purgatory, but souls who pause themselves. You kneel in the center of the room. The cold becomes complete. Your eyes sting, but not from pain, from something older. Recognition, because you now feel them too. Eyes that do not open, mouths that do not move. Watching from somewhere just adjacent to you, not above, not behind, but beside, in a direction that doesn't exist for the living. The silence room offers you what it offered her, a portal not through space, but through stillness. On the floor, beneath a layer of thin, preserved frost, is something unexpected. A small wax seal, unbroken, perfectly round. It glows with a faint internal light. Upon it, a single glyph. Not a rune, not a word, just the shape of a breath exhaled and caught halfway. You hesitate, because this is what she left for you. For anyone who would listen without speaking. For anyone who would hold still long enough to hear the dreams of the frozen. You break the seal. Instantly your skin tightens. The inside of your lungs twists. Not from chill, but from inversion. You're not breathing in anymore. You're not breathing out either. You are suspended, and in that suspension, you see, they stand around you, dozens of them, pale figures, skin blue and eyes black with stilled light. They wear robes of frost, faces smoothed by centuries of unexpression. They do not speak, they do not blink, but their silence speaks. We waited too long. One steps forward. The frost on its face breaks as it moves. You expect a scream. Instead, a whisper, thinner than wind. The dream does not end. It only slows. Another joins it. You are not dead, but you are leaving life behind. A third. We forgot who we were. We hope you remember what not to become. You open your mouth. No sound, only frost, only snow, unfurling from your tongue like a final exhale made visible. The seal melts behind you, and the silence room darkens, not from shadow, but from memory withdrawal. You are no longer recording this. The silence is keeping you now. You awaken, if it can be called awakening, within light that does not flicker. A pale blue radiance surrounds you, neither bright nor dim, but exact. The room is narrow, tall, and dry. No frost clings here. No ice spiders the walls. But the air is colder than any breath you've ever held. It does not move. Not because of stillness. Because it no longer understands how. At the room's center stands a pedestal, and on that pedestal, a candle. It is small, ivory in color, yet its wax bears no seam, no drip, no mark of use. But it burns. The flame is impossibly steady, vertical, thin as a needle, and blue-white at its core. No heat radiates from it. No scent. No motion. And yet, around it, shadows do not exist. Objects do not cast darkness here. The flame eats shadow. You step forward slowly, not by choice, but by inevitability. This, you understand now, is the candle that never melted, a relic mentioned only once in the final footnote of a Jesuit codex that was never meant to leave Rome. One item retrieved from the Rites of Frost, the note reads, is a candle with flame inverted. It burns not time but stillness. Its wax replenishes with silence. Its light reveals not what is, but what will stop being. You kneel. The light spills into your eyes, not painfully but precisely. It bypasses the cornea, the pupil, the optic nerve. It reaches something before vision. You don't see the candle. You remember it. Like something already known, buried just beneath your breath. And then it shows you. Not hallucinations, not dreams, but unshadowed truths. You see a cathedral, not yet built, shivering with the promise of stone. Its windows contain frost instead of glass. Its pews are empty but for cloaked figures holding mirrors instead of hymnals. The altar is made of ice that never drips, and above it hangs a candle. This candle, its flame a compass pointing not north but inward. Then the vision deepens. You see yourself, seated, not here, not now, in a room you do not yet know, silent, still, your reflection flickering in a bowl of unmelted wax. A breath curls from your lips and returns, loops back in like a serpent swallowing its own sigh. And then the candle speaks, not with voice, with absence. One word, removed from time, is delivered straight into your understanding. Anchor. You blink. The room remains the same, the candle unmoved, but now its flame leans left. Not from draft, from decision. The candle is measuring you, not your pulse, not your breath, your commitment to stillness. Behind you, a wall shifts. Not opens, shifts, like something forgotten trying to return. A doorway now visible, traced in liquid wax hardened into glass. Above it, another glyph, one you've seen only in fragments across this journey. The sigil of Chronostil, the lost. Monastic theory that the passage of time can be frozen without being stopped. That movement can continue only around a suspended soul. According to the Apocryphon of the Ninth Gate, which exists only in fragments sealed in amber, Chronostil was a belief that God's vision is linear, and to step sideways into stillness is to vanish from the divine gaze, not in defiance but in humble refusal to be seen too soon. The candle is your invitation. You are meant to carry it. But how do you carry something that burns inward? You extend your hand. The flame flickers once, and then moves not to your skin, to your chest. It passes through bone like breath through glass. You feel it settle behind your ribs, just beneath your sternum. No heat, no weight, just light, silent light. And then, a phrase forms, not aloud, but inside the soundless center of your mind. This will keep you from melting. For now. The room darkens, not from shadow, but because the flame no longer needs to be seen. It is in you now, burning slowly, consuming only the part of you that still remembered warmth. You turn toward the door and walk through. Behind you, the pedestal vanishes, and the walls whisper, not to you but about you. Another has taken the light inward. Another has frozen from within. The next chamber is silent, but not in the way of the silence room. This is a judging quiet, not peaceful, but anticipatory. A hush before a verdict. The walls are plain stone, but the floor is glass, black and without depth. Beneath it, there is nothing, not even your reflection. Only an absence that makes your feet feel imagined, as though the soul has begun to move without your body. And there it stands. The mirror, not hanging, not resting, suspended. A perfect circle, rimmed in bone, polished to ivory, each fragment engraved with symbols too ancient for language. The surface is neither glass nor silver, but a substance that bends light, swallows it, returns it reshaped. You do not see your face, you see motion, breath, curling in reverse, a faint fog of warmth, drifting away from something just beyond. The mirror's surface. You approach and the air grows thin, your lungs adjust, your body prepares for what the mind cannot. This is the mirror that shows your last breath, the final test before full soul stasis. The rite's logic is simple. If your breath appears in the mirror, you are still alive. If it does not, you are becoming. You exhale and watch. Your breath appears, yes, but not where it should. It forms a ring, suspended midair, not curling. Away but hovering, slowly dimming, slowly cooling. In its center, a second reflection, not you, not quite. It wears your skin, your mouth. But its eyes are wrong. Black, deep, unmoving. They do not blink. They do not flinch. They wait. And the breath you exhaled curls around it like a crown of smoke, slowing, solidifying. This is the moment recorded in texts long vanished. The exhale of separation. The final breath before stillness becomes soul form. There is no reverse. You remember reading once of a ritual conducted during the reign of Pope Innocent VI, deep beneath the catacombs of Avignon. A monk named Astorinius described his own reflection, breathing before he did. A reversal. A signal that the soul had begun to detach, that it had become anticipatory. He was sealed in stone before the breath vanished. No one opened his tomb. But years later, his reflection was seen again, in a bowl of ice carried from the Pyrenees where no mirror should have survived. You reach toward the mirror. It resists, not physically, spiritually. Your intent must be pure, still. The mirror only reflects the breath that has truly ceased. You must want to pause. You must choose not to be witnessed by eternity. You stop, and the mirror responds. The reflection clears. You see now the moment your breath will leave, truly leave, for the final time. A gentle bowing of the shoulders, a subtle tremble in the hands, a last sigh that doesn't sound like surrender but release. Peaceful, cold, and then, as if drawn by a thread, your reflection's lips move. They say your name, not aloud. Inside the mirror, from the inside of your future. But you do not hear the name. You have forgotten it. That is the test. That is the gate. The rite of soul. Freezing demands this, that your final breath is no longer yours, and your name becomes unspoken even within your own memory. You place your hand on the mirror's surface, cold, but not in the way of stone. Cold, in the way a grave feels before it is filled. The glass shifts, not cracking, but yielding. A tremor, a ripple, and suddenly the image begins to freeze. You see your reflection, your soul, caught in the moment of exhale, forever. That final breath becomes a shape, like a ghost turned into geometry, crystallizing into a sigil only the dead understand. This is what you are becoming. A breath without motion, a soul without time, a name without sound. And then, on the rim of the mirror, new frost blossoms. It writes, if you see no breath, step forward. If you see breath, wait. You look again. The mirror shows nothing. Not you. Not breath. Only a slow blue spiral of stillness. You step forward and pass through. No resistance. Only reversal. As if the world folds around you. And when you arrive on the other side, you are not in a room. You are in a reflection that has stopped waiting. It is no longer a room, it is a condition. You stand in a space that resembles nothing. Not void, not dream, just the remains of intent. Everything here feels unfinished, like a sentence interrupted by death. The floor beneath you is thought-shaped. Your footsteps make no sound, only memory. Walls drift into and out of form like breath condensing on vanished glass. This is where the failed were left. The failed. Those who almost froze their souls. Who tasted the edge of stasis but mispronounced the breathless prayer. Blinked during the mirror's command or held a name too tightly to forget. The rite is not forgiving. There is no recovery from a near freeze. Only suspension of self. You are not alone here. They sit in a circle, 5 of them, unmoving. Their robes once bore symbols of learned orders, occultists, scholars, even a Benedictine cross now frostbitten beyond meaning. Their faces are pale, translucent, waxen. They do not blink. They do not weep. They do not finish thoughts. They are alive. Technically, their breath fogs in loops, reversing mid-air. Their mouths open at times, forming the shapes of forgotten vowels. Their hands twitch at odd intervals, as if they are still trying to complete the rite from within the moment they failed. This is the price of misalignment. In Prague, 1899, a group of spiritualists calling themselves the Constellation of Echoes attempted the soul-freezing ritual using only translations from a corrupted Greek fragment. They sought stasis not for escape but for perfection. They believed that a paused soul could be preserved at its purest moment like a saint sealed in glass. They misread a single glyph. 1. The glyph for breath was taken as light. They extinguished all flame, sealed the room, and inhaled darkness. 4 survived. 1 is still here. You approach her now, a woman with frost-webbed eyelashes, her eyes wide, pupils static. She stares not at you, but through you, as if her perception is suspended between frames of the world. Her breath curls upward in a spiral and then recoils downward, never touching her lips. You kneel before her. She does not move. And then her hand rises, slowly, jerkily, like a puppet remembering its strings. She touches your chest. Her fingers burn, not with heat, but with extraction. You feel her reaching into the part of you that still breathes, still remembers. Not to steal, to show. Your vision fractures. You see what she saw in the instant before her mind shattered. A room of mirrors, each reflecting a version of herself, but wrong. One smiles while she screams, another melts. A third, frozen solid, but moving. None blink. All are conscious, and behind them, a door that never opens. You are yanked back. She drops her hand. Her lips move again. This time, you read them. Don't leave. In pieces. There is a phrase written on the ground beneath her, burned not by fire, but by spiritual recoil. Stillness must be whole. Half-frozen souls cannot reform. This is the final debate, whispered only in forbidden monasteries. Of the Lithuanian ice fringe, can a soul that failed to freeze ever rejoin itself? Or will it always remain cracked? Some theologians call these the shattered, souls that echo in frost but never complete the rite. Their breath remains in rooms. Their thoughts remain in mirrors. Their reflections weep where no one stands. You walk through the circle of the 5. None react, yet the frost around them shifts. Each sits within a circle of broken glyphs, incomplete rites drawn too quickly or with trembling hand. One glyph is repeated over and over, a symbol resembling a candle drowned in water. Its meaning, attempt again at peril, and yet, one seat is empty. You stare. The 6th seat, never filled. A failed freezing, interrupted before the breath left. There is no name. No sigil, only a small bowl at its center filled with frozen wax shaped like a spiral caught mid-drip. You understand, this was meant for you. If you stop here, if you doubt, this is where you remain, unreflected, unremembered, unrepaired. And just then, all 5 figures exhale, together. Their breath converges in the center of the circle and freezes into a perfect shard. It falls, shatters. Silence returns, and now the path ahead reveals itself. A long corridor of mirrors, each one framed in bone, each one reflecting your breath, for now. But at the end, just one, no reflection. That is where you're meant to go, but not yet, because one of the failed turns their head, looks directly at you, and you see your own face looking back, eyes unblinking, breath, paused, smile, beginning. You walk the corridor. Each mirror reflects your breath, but faintly now. Its trail is thinner, more uncertain, like fog forgetting how to cling to glass. Your footsteps do not echo. The floor is ash-colored wood, aged, warped, but beneath it you sense something waiting, not lurking, not hostile, just placed. As though a secret rests there, wrapped in stillness like a pearl inside bone. The mirrors begin to blur, not because of motion, because of recognition. You no longer see yourself as you were. Your reflection begins to alter, slowly. Your eyes turn darker. Your chest no longer rises as fully. In one mirror, you don't breathe at all. You reach the final door. There is no handle, only a phrase carved in ice across its surface. The rite completes not in mirrors but in anchors. You push. The door parts. Inside, a room you know, your own, but not as it is, as it might be. A single candle burns in a glass case. Your books are stacked neatly on the desk. A chair sits facing the wall, empty, but beneath the floorboards, just beneath the grain, something glows. You kneel, the boards are cold, they remember you. One plank is loose. You pry it open with your bare hands, no effort, no splintering, as if the wood wants to give way. And beneath it, a vessel, an urn, blackened silver, shaped like an hourglass sealed at both ends. Around its rim, a repeating glyph. The spiral of reversed breath. You lift it. It hums. Inside, something moves. Not with heat, but with timing. A pulse. Slow. Measured. Your pulse, but not now. It is your last breath captured, stored, anchored. The rite is complete. Your soul is no longer inside you. Not entirely. Part of it rests here, beneath the floor of a place not yet real, sealed in a vessel forged from unspoken names and inverted prayers. You are now distributed, suspended, stilled in two worlds, and from somewhere behind you, the candle goes out. No sound, no smoke, just absence. You turn back. The room remains, unchanged, but you understand now. This was never about death, never about escape. It was about displacement, about moving the soul out of time's current, anchoring it in spaces too quiet for the divine to hear. Not lost, not judged, just withheld. On the far wall, written in mirror script, you now see the final phrase of the forbidden book. It was never meant to be read forward. It reads, "Where your soul is placed, time cannot reach. If it calls, do not answer. If it knocks, remain still. You have chosen pause. You place the urn back, seal the floor, and stand. Behind you, the mirror that showed no reflection now begins to frost from within. You walk toward it and pass through. No resistance, just a hush, and a whisper from the glass, like breath exhaled from forgotten lungs. You are not the first. You will not be the last. The mirror fades, the rite ends, but the stillness continues. You feel it in the rooms you return to. You hear it in the gaps between words, and if you ever open that floorboard again, your breath might not come back. And now, you return to a world that moves, but you do not entirely follow. You walk among the warm, the living, the hurried. But somewhere behind your eyes, a window remains closed. Your name still answers when called, but slower, as if wading through syrup, as if climbing back from beneath the floor. The urn still rests beneath you. You know this. Even if you forget, your breath will remember. On quiet nights when the lights dim and your reflection lingers too long in glass, you might catch it. A second version of you standing still while you move. You are both of you now. The breath that continues and the breath that paused. They say, the soul is indivisible. They were wrong. It can be folded, stored, frozen mid-motion, and left like a bookmark in time. All that's required is silence, discipline, and forgetting the sound of your own voice. You may begin to notice small things now. mirrors that fog before you exhale, candles that bend away when you pass, a chill in your room that no fire cures. They're not hauntings, they're reminders. Because now you belong to something older than life, older than warmth. You are part of the library of those who chose not to be judged, but to wait. Not to ascend or fall, but to still. And if one day someone lifts the floorboard, finds the urn, opens it, then your breath will return. But not all of it. Not with your name. Just your silence. A silence that remembers everything. Because there are more books. There are always more books. And your next breath might be waiting in one of them. If your candle has not gone out yet, you might be ready for the next book.